It's important to recognize that, especially in those industries like construction and energy, where job sites are already very dynamic, not only in safety issues and the dynamic workforce, trades, different trades coming back and forth, and then you bring in this range of people with backgrounds and ages. So today's really going to cover what do we need to do as workforce intermediaries and colleges and trades and educators to support what that would look like in order for everybody to be effective and to have the skills they need to work as teams. So with that, I'm really excited to introduce Mark Martinez. He always says he's just a roofer, and I'm like, he is a roofer. He was a roofer, and now he's a champion for the trades. He works very closely with the community college system and has been a big part of the Center of Excellence. And as Jim commented before, our advisory boards are really the key role in the success of the centers, and Mark has been an active participant and supporter throughout the years. So, Mark, I'd like to invite you to come up and kick off the day.
So, again, thank you for allowing me to give a few minutes of your time today. When Shana asked me to give this opening speech, she said, do a little bit about, where apprenticeship is and kind of some history and that kind of thing. I thought, hey, cool. I get to do a bunch of research on the history of apprenticeship and all this kind of stuff because I'm an apprenticeship geek and where it came from and all this kind of stuff. And I did a bunch of research and I started to write the speech and I read it over again. It was the most boring talk that I had ever had to sit through, and I did it myself. So instead of going through facts and figures and statistics and everything else about apprenticeship, I thought maybe I would just sort of give you an idea about my experiences and my reflections, both as an apprentice. I did work with the tools for about 20 years. I did teach at some time, and then I've been in leadership with the building trades for about another 10, 15 years or so. So just a couple of things before I start. A disclaimer. This is Mark Martinez's opinion. This is not the opinion of the state building trades, nor the state labor council, nor the Pierce County building trades. And second, and I'll explain this a little bit later, when I use the term apprenticeship, I mean registered apprenticeship. So just keep that in the back of your mind as I go. So to be really clear, I was the worst apprentice that anybody could have been teaching. I was terrible for the first couple of years. I simply did not get it. If I was teaching myself in my apprenticeship class, I'd have kicked my ass out the door. I was terrible, but it took a couple of years to figure that out. And once I figured it out, boom, the light went on. This is really valuable. I'm learning a skill that few other people have. And so, take my comments as they go. Shana asked me to do sort of an overview of this workshop, and it is about the workforce. Workforce is a big thing now. We've been telling them for years it was going to be a big thing, but it's a big thing now. And so apprenticeship in the 70s was a pretty much of a well-kept secret. It was kind of part of that hidden job market that we keep hearing about. It still exists, but it was really hidden back in the 70s. But now we advertise on Facebook and social media trying to find recruits. We have information about the programs on all sorts of websites that you can find. We are partnering with community-based organizations that steer their clients to our programs to take advantage of the opportunities that we provide. And I think still, to this day, a lot of folks don't understand apprenticeship. But I think what they really understand are the wages and the benefits that go along with becoming an applicant and becoming an apprentice. That's really important, I think, in today's economy. Apprenticeship in the 70s and the 80s was still very white and still very male. That started to change in the 80s as population demographics and societal pressures started to change the attitudes of the folks that were running our apprenticeship programs. That's a good thing. For instance, today on the Sound Transit projects, they report that 40% of their apprentices working are people of color, and 8% of those folks are women. And while that female percentage is way too low, the national average is less than 2%. So we're taking this seriously. We're trying to move forward. That's what happens when a construction owner makes it their business to diversify the workforce. We really applaud Sound Transit for the work they've done on that. We still have a long way to go to crash through those barriers for our brothers and sisters of color and other underrepresented folks, but we're getting there. Just like electronic technology, technology in the construction field, construction processes, continues to rapidly change. We saw that during the 90s, just constant different materials, different ways of putting down a roof. When I was an apprentice, I knew two ways to roof. It was either mopping hot asphalt, or hot tar, if you want to say it, or banging on shingles. Today, we use thermoplastics, we use rubberized systems, all sorts of different things that you need to know to be a decent roofer. It's not just slinging hot anymore, as they used to say. So our apprenticeship programs met the challenge. They developed more timely and stringent curriculum, and some of the programs started moving out of the community colleges where they were based and started to build their own standalone campuses. And if you ever get a chance, if you run into the plumbers or sheet metal workers, operating engineers, laborers, they've got some beautiful, beautiful training facilities around the state. In fact, if the operating engineers have their facility out in Ellensburg, I think they have like 1,500 acres and all the big toys you ever want to play with. It's pretty cool. So if you ever get a chance to do that, go out there. Part of those curriculum changes were also meeting the demographic changes that we saw happening in the workforce. For instance, my own roofers program, and I get to blow a horn here a little bit for my program, won the Governor's Workforce Best Practice Award in 2009 for their IBEST program for roofing. And IBEST, if you don't know, is Integrated Basic Education and Skills Training. So basically we combined ESL and our instruction for roofing into one package for our non-native speakers. We were the first construction program in the country to do so. We improved our participants' average ESL grade 2 or 3 points, which was unheard of at that time. And so we're pretty proud of that. For many years, construction apprenticeship has sort of been looked down by the educational bureaucracy of the K-12 and higher education as sort of a second-class way to get into the workforce because of their college for all policy. And I think that policy continues today. But I will tell you, I think that's changing. I'm seeing really good signs of that. And I think I can kind of point out where that change kind of started. In February of 2011, the Harvard Graduate School of Education published a study titled Pathway to Prosperity, Meeting the Challenge of Preparing Young Americans for the 21st Century. And so I'd like to read just the first 2 paragraphs of their conclusion from this study. It says, the American system for preparing young people to lead productive and prosperous lives as adults is clearly badly broken. Failure to aggressively overcome this challenge will surely erode the fabric of our society. The American dream rests on the promise of economic opportunity with a middle-class lifestyle for those willing to work for it. Yet for millions of young Americans entering adulthood, lacking access to marketable skills, the American dream may be just an illusion, unlikely ever to come within their grasp. If we fail to prepare current and future teens and young adults, their frustration over scarce and inferior opportunities is likely to grow, along with economic inequality. The quality of their lives will be lower, the cost that they impose on society will be higher, and many of their potential contributions to society will go unrealized. This is a troubling prospect for any society and almost certainly a recipe for national decline. That's Harvard. I'm figuring they kind of know what they're talking about. I don't know. So on the bright side of that, I think people have finally listened. I think yesterday, as Shana pointed out, OSPI and the governor's office rolled out a framework for the Career Connected Learning Initiative that's going to strengthen career and technical education in the K-12 system. They actually mentioned apprenticeship as being the model of education that is going to work in places other than construction, because we already have one. Manufacturing, financial services, healthcare, to name a few, they're starting to use the apprenticeship model of education because it's efficient and it works. So, what's the current state of construction apprenticeship? I contend we're on an upward trajectory. We are finally getting recognition from business and academia of our value to the industries that we represent. The apprenticeship programs continue to make investments into their facilities, equipment, and curriculum to continue to be ahead of that curve. Last year, the National Building Trades came out with a report talking about the union apprenticeship programs in 2015. They spent over $1 billion in training. And just to be clear, that money mostly comes out of the pockets of my members. The union apprenticeship programs are largely funded by hourly deductions from our pay packets from our members that go into labor management administered trust funds. In other words, our members are paying the educational costs for the next generation of skilled craftspeople. And at the same time, they are transferring their knowledge to those apprentices on the job site. A few cautions to consider as we go and continue down this path of workforce development, especially around apprenticeship. First of all, we must continue to uphold and even increase the standards of apprenticeship. Watering down our rigor to accommodate the increasing need does no one any good in the long term. Keep doing what we're doing. We also have to guard against the appropriation of the term apprenticeship or apprentice. We are not some hack TV program. That's when I used the term registered apprenticeship. It took you a while. The term registered apprenticeship, I think, has to be our sort of our buzzword. It's not just apprenticeship. Registered apprenticeship that is overseen by a third party is how we're going to continue to keep our standards high. And in the state of Washington, where we have one of the strongest apprenticeship systems in the country, I think it's because we have the Washington State Apprenticeship and Training Council. They oversee our programs, they follow the rules, and we must fight any attempt to weaken or eliminate this kind of oversight. So in conclusion, audience participation. Reach down into your pocket or your purse or on your table and hold up the nearest electronic device that you can find. Just hold it up. A couple things we're going to ask. First of all, never forget that someone, somewhere down the line, that produced that tool you have in your hand had to dig in the dirt to make that product. What makes construction apprenticeship powerful enough to survive into the future is that it is intrinsically human. That direct person-to-person transfer of knowledge has given us good service throughout our history. And no matter what the next big, new, gee-whiz technology arises, Again, just remember that there is and will be a brother or sister with dirty hands that will bring that dream to reality. Thank you very much.